today I rise to remember the 10th anniversary of the anthrax attacks on our country. During the weeks following the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2011, our nation was exposed to chemical warfare for the first time. 2 anthrax attacks were delivered through our country's postal system. The first set of letters was mailed to media outlets including ABC, CBS, NBC, the National Enquirer, and the New York Post in September. 3 weeks later, 2 other anthrax letters were mailed to the United States Senator Daschle and Senator Patrick Leahy. The letter to Senator Leahy never made it to Capitol Hill. The envelope addressed to Senator Daschle, however, was opened on October 15th in the Hart Senate Office Building in the mailroom of the office I use today. Emergency responders rushed to join Capitol Police to evaluate the situation and determine the extent of contamination. 10 years ago this week, on October 17th, 2001, the Capitol was evacuated. At that time, I was a member of the House of Representatives. I remember the fear and trepidation all Americans felt in the days and weeks following September 11th. I take this time to honor the courage of our nation's federal employees. 2 made the ultimate sacrifice, dying from the exposure of the deadly anthrax toxin at the postal facility that handled all the mail that came to the Senate and the House offices. United States postal workers Thomas L. Morris, Jr. and Joseph P. Corsine, Jr. gave the ultimate sacrifice after being exposed to the infected Senate mail while they worked in the Brentwood Post Office facility here in Washington, D.C. Mr. Morris and Mr. Corsine were Maryland residents. Like so many other federal employees, they went to work every day, serving the American people and trying to earn a living for themselves and their families. Less than a week after being exposed to the deadly anthrax at the mail facility, both men died of their exposures. The Brentwood Postal Facility, which was shuttered for months while the building was disinfected, now proudly bears their names, honoring 2 federal employees who died doing their jobs. Literally thousands of other federal employees bravely went back to work, making sure our government continued to function in the most uncertain of times. While most federal workers crammed together in small makeshift office space, other brave federal employees put themselves in harm's way, trying to contain the spread of the weaponized spores and to clean up the deadly bacteria. It has been fashionable of late to criticize the Environmental Protection Agency. But I remind everyone that members of EPA's Region 3 led the emergency response efforts following the anthrax attacks. They were joined by a small army of other EPA emergency responders from around the country who responded to the call for extra personnel to manage the massive decontamination efforts. EPA's headquarters staffers were fully engaged as well. The EPA National Pesticide Program worked quickly to develop new methods necessary to wipe out the anthrax. Scientists worked primarily out of EPA's National Pesticide Lab, which is located just 20 miles away in Fort Meade, Maryland. It was not just EPA employees who answered the call to duty. The Capitol Police were the first ones to respond, and they continued to provide protection to legislative branch employees as well as the emergency responders and the public. The Department of Defense lent its expertise. As the cleanup progressed, thousands of tests were taken and then sent to Fort Detrick in Frederick, Maryland, where chemical weapons specialists analyzed samples and reported results to the Emergency Command Center. Defense Department personnel were also engaged in the actual decontamination efforts, working side by side with EPA emergency responders. The photos that I brought to the floor today show some of these emergency responders wearing specialized protective gear, working on the decontamination of Senator Daschle's office. Each desk, chair, filing cabinet, a piece of paper in the office was removed. The last item to be removed from the room 509 of the Hart Building was an American flag that hung in Senator Daschle's front office. Emergency responders are seen here folding the flag before it. It was placed in a special sealed bag and then sent off to be decontaminated. Countless employees at the Sergeant of Arms, the Architect of the Capitol, the Senate, and the House staffers continue tending to the business of running our government and the legislature. It was critical that Congress continue to function, demonstrating to the nation and the world that terrorist attacks could not cripple the institution of democracy. Other federal employees put themselves in harm's way during and after the anthrax attacks. These federal employees worked hard to do what many thought impossible, putting public buildings back into use after a chemical attack. At great risk to themselves, they bravely met the challenges to ensure our government continued to function. Madam President, today I honor the memory of Thomas L. Morris, Jr. and Joseph P. Corsine, Jr., who gave their lives while engaged in public service. Today, I salute those federal employees who risked their own lives so that the legislative branch of the greatest government on the earth could continue, and those who continue to work every day in the face of grave danger and uncertainty. And today, I simply wanted to give a heartfelt thank you to all of Americans' federal work employees. You recognize that public service is an honorable calling, and your work every day to keep this nation the great nation it is. With that, Madam President, let me once again thank our federal workforce for what they do for our country.